Hi, my name is Emily from Simply Steins. Today we're going to do the hometown homesteads, and today we're going to look at the Grace with Goats farms. They raise goats and make lotions and soaps, and I also got to see an install of an outdoor wood stove that they use for to heat their house. So enjoy the video.
Hi, I'm Eric.
Hi, I'm Donna. Welcome to our home. So how we got into goats is probably 6 years ago now. My husband came home with 2 goats. And it's funny because I told him I wasn't going to help at all. Like he brought it home for 4-H projects for the kids. And they were going to, breed them, and they were going to have 4-H goats. And I told him, I was like, this is a project for you and your kids then. You're going to be the one to take care of them. I'm not going to feed goats. I'm not going to chase goats. I wanted no part of it. And now it's, I'm a really big part of it. But the kids, though, it is their 4-H projects. And I tell people all the time that they do probably 90% of everything, and Eric and I maybe do 10%. Eric's really big on, he's the one that helps, like if a goat kind of gets sick, or if one's needing its shots, or things like that. Kind of takes care of them that way. I'm more of like the day-to-day operation. I'm the one that goes and gets all the stuff for them. But the kids, they're the ones that get up when we're milking. They're the ones that milk. They milk in the morning, they milk at night. They're the ones that feed every morning. They're the ones that water. Our oldest daughter, she is definitely like the goat whisperer. She can tell you what goat is crying. She can tell you what's going on with them. If one of them's, like under the weather, she's the one that's, on top of it. But yeah, so it is definitely their projects, and that's kind of how we started.
Back whenever we first started, the milk prices were pretty high, and we were going through a lot of milk. And if you've never had goat's milk, it's amazing. I've given it to a few people that remember what it was like to have cow's milk fresh on the farm, and they all say it tastes just like that. So it was something that, like, even my dad, he would drink it straight once we had cooled it down, and he was pretty impressed with how good it tastes. And we've made cheese with it, and now she makes soap with it and stuff like
lotions,
that. Yep. Oh yeah, lotions. That's a big thing.
Yep. This is Sugar Plum. She has been with us for
probably about 8 months from the beginning.
Yeah.
She was our first purchased goat, and then pretty much the last one up until Jersey. You want to get a new male every once in a while, but
she's an American Nubian.
No, she's purebred.
Oh, she's the purebred Nubian. Okay, see, that's why I have him. We had an American Nubian buck, and we have some of his babies out here too. But we have Nubians, and then we have miniature Nubians. And miniature Nubians is a cross between 2 dairy goats. So they are actually a cross between a Nigerian dwarf, which is a dairy goat, and then full-blooded Nubians. Nubians are known for their milk production. They give, usually whenever she is in full milk, she can give up to 1.5 gallons in a milking. So in Nigerian dwarfs, she's very friendly. They are big milkers also, but whenever you cross them together, you get the milk production of a Nubian, but like a smaller size. So like for older people, I know it's a big draw for a lot of older people. Messing with a full-size Nubian can become a challenge at times whenever they're stubborn. And so, a lot of times just having like the little Nubians, like this one right here, this is Patty, and she is 3 years old now, and that's the size that she gets. So they're a little bit more manageable. They're a little bit more easier to handle, things like that. But one of the big draws for Nubians, most people recognize Nubians because of their big floppy ears. They have no control over their ears. And so a lot of people think that that's where Nigerian dwarfs, they have airplane ears, so they can control their ears. So whenever you get that cross, sometimes you get like floppy controlled ears, and so it kind of becomes a joke. But they're definitely full-time job. We don't go on vacations.
No.
We do. We don't go together.
Yeah, it's no vacation, that's for sure.
You know, because I mean, it's a lot to ask, especially when they're milking. It'd be a lot to ask somebody to come morning to milk, night to milk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and even, you know, to take care of them. So we don't go on very many vacations. That one that you're petting right now, that's Rhonda. She's pregnant.
Possibly.
Well, as I look at her, you can tell she's got these two big bowling balls on each side of her, and she should be due any day. And Sugar, we believe, you know, she's pregnant too. Hi, babe. What do you want? What do you want? Are you just wanting attention right now? Huh? Are you wanting attention?
Goal is to get to miniature Nubians, so we started out with a experimental breed, if it looks like the breed, and then I had Sugar Plum, which was a purebred, and then that was our two main does to start with, and we had a Nigerian buck that bred those two.
Yeah, you had Sugar Plum, or you had Prim.
Yeah, but she was experimental, but I
Right.
can't remember what it's called. It goes by the appearance, but she was mostly Nubian.
She had a little bit of La Mancha in her.
Yeah, but she had all the physical features of a Nubian, and then it's kind of loose on what you can do after that to get to the miniature Nubian, but I really want the Nubian trait because they've got a better milk, and I love the temperament of the Nubians. So they're just, I mean, they're ornery, but they're just not as ornery. They're just like dogs practically.
When we had the Nigerian buck, I could not wait to get rid of him. Honestly, like, he was like my least favorite buck that we ever had. I mean, they're all, you have your favorites, and you know, they become a part of your family. You know, people ask me, because we have 4 kids, I'll be like, no, I have about 20 some kids. You know, but so something else that we do that maybe quite a few others, as you can tell, the goats are all very friendly and they want to come up to us, and part of that is because we bottle feed. So after the moms give birth, we, in a sense, pull the babies from them, and then we bottle feed them every day. We start out doing it like probably 6 times a day until they get older, you know, and then it goes down to 3 times a day, 4 times a day, and we integrate the grain and things. But the purpose of that is so that they become tame to humans, especially since the kids use them for 4-H. You know, whenever they go into that show ring with them, they need to have a bond, if that's what you want to call it, because the very first goats that we had born on the farm, we left them on their mom, and they became very wild, and they didn't want to come up to you. You know, it took forever to chase them, you know, if you needed to do something with them, but because we bottle feed them, in a sense, we become their mom or their dad, and they become extremely friendly. They aren't afraid of humans. They are extremely,
They're more curious that way. I mean,
Yeah.
they'll come up to you. I mean, the kids, their feeding schedule and whatnot, I mean, if you do have a goat that gets out or whatever, all they have to do is just come outside and say feeding time, and they'll come running to them. So
yeah. And they do get out, unfortunately, at times. They are very curious, and the grass is always greener on the other side of this hot fence than anywhere else. And we've had multiple people. There's a lot of times if we hear a car honk, we'll be like, are the goats out? And so the kids will go look, and sometimes they'll get out. There's been a couple times, you know, that they've gotten kind of on a road, but we have some extremely forgiving neighbors and gracious neighbors. And it's funny, we have a neighbor down the road. The only time we would ever talk to her is whenever she'd text me to tell me that there was a goat out. But it's they're good goats, and we have some great, neighbors, and they help keep an eye on them, and but yes, they are intelligent. We have a hot fence around, and sometimes they'll go right straight through the hot fence. I mean, if they want something on the other side, it doesn't matter if they're getting, shocked or not, they're gonna go through it, kind of like kids. So we have a lot of goats, and some are born, and the kids just come up with crazy names. We've had, this year was the Lion King theme. So we've had Simba, Mufasa, Nala. So we actually, one that he was telling me about, I was on the phone call with some friends, and the kids came in yelling that we had babies born. And it just so happened to be a male and a female, or a doe and a buck. And so my husband thought it would be funny to name them after the people that I was talking to on the phone. And so we have a Rhonda, and we had a Todd. The Todd's gone, but that's, I mean, they just get their names. We've had thing 1, thing 2. We've had Marilyn and Jill. We've had a twin and a twinbee. Because I think we had like 20 some goats born that year, and we were just running out of names, and so we just started calling them Twin and Twinbee. And so,
that was after a sermon though from church.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just, there's no rhyme or reason to their names. I know a lot of people. The one name that I do like best that we have, that I'll tell you about. So we bought a buck, and he drove all the way out to Pennsylvania to get this buck.
Wow.
And while he was out there, he decided he was going to go on to New Jersey to buy a transmission, I think, for a vehicle. Really, I honestly think it was just so he could go to a seafood restaurant out there personally. But anyways, so how goats are named, how they get their official name whenever you register them, is the name of your farm goes first, and then whatever you choose to name them after that. So like the name of our farm is Graced with Goats. And so all of our goats, so like we have Dixie here, her legal registered name is Graced with Goats Dixie. And then we've had Graced with Goats Periwinkle. So there's a lot of different ones. Well, the name of the farm that we purchased this buck from was Never Fails. And so since they went to New Jersey, I thought it would be cool to name him Never Fails Jersey Trippin', because they took a Jersey trip to go pick him up. But anyway, so that's my funnest name ever to say, was that it was Never Fails Jersey Trippin' was his legal name. But anyway, so that's kind of how they get their legal names. So we feed them separate. We usually feed the feeding trough in one area, and then they have littler ones in a pen so that they can eat, so that the big ones, because they can get mean when it comes to their food, and they can butt them around. You can see they're already butting some of them around. But they get a feed once a day. It's a sweet feed mixture that we purchased through our local grain mill here in town, feed mill or grain store. But it's a mixture of like a sweet feed and then alfalfa pellets, and that really helps with them.
For anybody that's wanting goats, you should buy a goat feed. You don't want to feed sheep feed. That's a lot more popular, but goats must have copper. So in some areas it's even so bad that you have to, what they call a copper bolus. And basically it's like a little slug of copper that little rods inside of the capsule, and you have to force feed that to them, and it sits in their stomach and they get their copper that way. But we're fortunate enough that we can get enough copper for them through their feed, through just mineral supplementation.
And the thing with why he said not to feed sheep is because copper will kill sheep. And so if you purchase just a sheep grain or a sheep feed, it's not going to have that copper in it because it will kill them. But like he said, goats need that copper. It's a mineral that they have to have.
And you'll know if they are deficient on it because their hair will fall out. Like mostly, like if they have a collar on or anything like that, it'll be really raw in that area. Their hair will fall out. They'll start having patches of hair fall out in other places and stuff. So that's how you know if you haven't looked into your soil and whatnot.
There's been some years where, we've milked 5 at a time, at one time. Some years we only have 1 or 2. It really just depends. The older, for our experience, the older the doe, the better they are at milking. And so generally a first year doe or a first freshening doe, they don't
They don't know how to act on the milking stand.
Right. Well, that's part of it, and a lot of
So,
times, and
About the second or third year.
this sounds really crazy, but they will hold their milk. Like if they just want to be stubborn, they won't release their milk to come out. No matter, you could sit there for an hour and try and milk them, and you'll get a little bit, but you'll be able to feel their udder, and it'll be really hard, and you know that there's milk up in there, but they just will not release that milk. So when we do milk, we can't milk out here because there's not really a place to be able to milk out here with it being a portable system. So we do, if it's super, super cold, rainy, snowy, things like that, we can milk in the garage, which we've done. But a lot of times we just milk off the front porch. We have milking stands and we have everything up there. And the goats know when they are milking, they're kind of like on a clock, just like the rest of us, and they know what times things are supposed to happen. And if we accidentally sleep in on a certain day, they let us know that they're not happy. But when it's time to milk and they know that they're in milking the goats, all you have to do is open the gate and they will walk right up to the front porch and they will hop up on that milking stand, and because they know their treats there, and they know that, they've got 15-20 minutes up there of, pampering, and then they, they'll come out and they'll walk out here. And so it's pretty simple. But
You don't even have to use a leash or a lead or anything.
That's usually for the does that are, though,
the ones that are about
seasoned.
2 to 3 years.
Yeah, the ones that are 2 to 3 years into it. The first year ones,
but open the gate.
The first year ones, though, you have to teach them, hey, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, kind of thing. But it's right up there. We have 2 milking stands, so if we have a lot of does that are milking, there's been a couple years where there's 2 kids out there milking, and they take turns, they'll get goats up there, and it just helps the process a little bit easier. But whenever there's just like 1 or 2 that we're milking at a time, we just have 1 milk stand out, and so
it doesn't take too long, about 15 minutes.
And they milk by hand. They do not have a machine. I know a lot of people have a machine. We have the components to have a milk machine. He bought it a couple years ago, and
I'm just afraid that the kids will hurt the goats with it, because if you leave them on too long, you can start causing mastitis and things like that.
So they do milk by hand. They have their favorite goats that they like to milk, and they have their favorite goats that they don't like to milk. They're not huge. The first year does, especially if they're like a real miniature Nubian one, like super mini, they have really small udders and really small teats, and so the kids have a hard time with that. We keep 90% of the does that are born, we keep them, but when it comes to bucks that are born, we only keep the bucks that the kids will take to fair, so we won't keep more than 4 bucks. Any other buck that is born, we will band them, and then they become wethers. Unless somebody is wanting a buck, and then we sell bucks. But generally, most people, bucks stink.
Intact ones do.
Hey, if they're intact, they stink. And so a lot of people, if they're just taking them to have as pets, they don't want intact. They want wethers, and so we have a couple wethers here right now, but we don't have any bucks, and so we're in the process of looking. We sold our buck that we had this past spring, just because he kind of exhausted his needs here, and so we're in the process of looking for a new one. But it takes, there's so many out there, and it's kind of like picking a favorite color. You want this, you want them to have this feature, you want them to have, this coloring, or you want them to have their hips to look like this, and it's all part of the genetics, and so.
And that's pretty tough too, because you definitely want to pick a prominent trait to pass on, to help improve your herd. So always be improving your herd one way or another. So, and finding the right one is tough. So I built this wood stove after paying $1,000 electric bills, and I wanted to end that. So we bought a propane tank, about 1,000 gallon, and almost cut it in half. And then I made the firebox, I think about 42 inches long. And then what was left over, I quartered it and then extended the sides of that and basically put the firebox inside of that. So that's where so you can see the fire chamber here, and with this lip here, that gives me an extra foot. So I don't know, so the water jacket starts right about here and then it ends right there, and then that's all the way around. And this fire chamber, I can get close to a 5-foot log in here, so if you can pick it up, you can put it in there. So, and basically that just heats all this water, and then so you can see the level of it. So the water level's somewhere right around in there, and that should be about 181 degrees. So that's so basically this is the control box up here. Whenever that's below 180 degrees, it'll turn power onto this solenoid basically, and it'll open up and let air in and feed the fire with air so that it'll come up to temperature, and then once it gets to 180, it'll shut the power off. And that's really absolutely all you need. You don't need a fan or any of that stuff. So that's the electronics of it really. And then the other thing is there's like a little water pump on the back that circulates the water into the house, and then there's a radiator above the furnace, and we have a heat pump set up. So basically all I do is a heat pump requires your outside air conditioner to run in the wintertime, but it's running in reverse. So I took the 24 volt that causes the contactor to close in to turn on the outside unit. I just shut that off, disconnected it, and so the house system thinks that it's turning on the heat pump, but it's not. The water heat is already there, so it just circulates the air in the house, and then whenever it comes up to temperature in the house, then it shuts it off for the circulating fan. So it's not really a whole lot to it. A lot of welding doing a project like this. So I'm not saying that everybody could do it, but anybody could do it that wants to do it. This is a fire rock insulation. I can actually sit here with a blowtorch and hold that to that. That should be metal faced, but that's a lot of work, and I really just don't want to do it. So, but it'll happen one day. But it's kind of a waste of money because it is kind of expensive. I think about $35 for one bale of it, and that'll get you, I think, 6 panels. And I use the panels that I think that's pretty close to a full panel right there. So I think you get 6 of them for about $35. Heat or hot water with it too. I built an attachment to the side of the hot water heater, and this water circulates through that as well. And they're really simple in design. It's kind of unfortunate. I don't think the EPA is allowing people to buy them anymore. So if you want one now, you're pretty much going to have to build it like this. So I think I built it for right around $2,000 if I remember right. The propane tank, it was a couple $100. I think my circulating pump is about $150. I think it was about $100 for that. You can't even get that on Amazon anymore. That's unfortunate in my opinion, but they make other ones on there that you can get that are a lot cheaper than that. I think you can get them now for like $20. You may even get 2 of them. So, but they don't look like that, but they do the same thing. Welding rods, a lot. I couldn't even tell you. I bet I've got close to 30, 40 pounds of welding rods in the whole thing. Trying to, the radiator that goes in the house, that's a couple $100. You might as well just figure $300. You'll be safe. You can buy just about any one of them for that.
The tubing that takes the water from
Yeah, the tubing that takes, it's a PEX pipe, and basically 2 pipes, a blue one and a red one, and then there's foil insulation bubble wrap basically, and then that's inside of a drainage tile. That's all it is. And then I bought one that had an extra thread in it. It's pull tape basically. So if you wanted to pull an electric wire through it, you could do that too. So you could, technically I could run wire through that system and power it all from there if I wanted to. And then I think a water heater attachment, you can buy those for, might as well say $200, because I know you can buy any of them for that. And then about 2 years later, you'll have it completely paid for.
When we started milking the goats, the kids would drink it if we put enough chocolate into it. So goat's milk has a thick texture to it, and it has just a slightly different taste to it. But if you put chocolate in it, it tasted like a chocolate milkshake and things like that. But we were getting so much milk, because I think earlier I said that we could get 1.5 gallons off of each milking from a full-blooded Nubian. And so in the end, I started dumping all this milk down the drain. And I was really having a hard time with that. And so I'd had some friends be like, oh, you need to make goat milk soap. And I'm like, oh, no. You know, for a couple of years I put it off. And then about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I was like, okay, I'm going to try my hand at it. So it's kind of grown, and we have a business now with it. And I have a wholesaler in Missouri. And so I'm actually in a store in a couple boutiques down in Missouri. And then I just sell locally up here. Goat's milk soap is really good. A lot of people that have like skin irritations and things like that, it's good for them. And so this is kind of where we do it out. We have some soaps over here that are curing. I make the soaps ahead because they have to cure anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks before you can actually sell them to use them. The longer they cure, the harder they become, the longer the soap lasts. But you can use it after about 3 weeks. So lotions, I have some lotions up here made up. I usually make those to order. Whenever somebody calls me and be like, hey, I need this, I'll be like, okay, I'll get that for you. And so we're not milking right now, so I don't have any fresh milk to be able to make lotions like that. For soaps, you need frozen milk for how it interacts with the lye. For lotions, you need fresh liquid milk, not frozen. And so we have a freezer down here, and we store our goat's milk. So instead of dumping the milk down the drain, we freeze it. And then I can use it in times whenever we're not milking, so that I can still, you know, make lotions and things and keep that part of the business going. We kind of started out with just soaps and lotions. We've kind of expanded a little bit. We make face creams. I make foaming hand soap, which has become very popular. It's just really soothing on the skin, and just the, you know, because there's a high fat content in milk, in goat's milk. And so that's just, you know, it's just extra nourishing and things like that. And so this is kind of where we do it. And we have different essential oils and fragrances, and these are some body sprays. We have body sprays now. They do not have goat's milk in them. It's just kind of a byproduct, if that's what you want to call it. But we do have body sprays. Those are actually getting ready to be shipped out to Missouri this week. Some of these soaps are getting ready to be shipped out to Missouri. The place in Missouri that carries it, it's the Lemon Drop Boutique, and I believe that they are in the Shabby Chic Boutique in Marshfield, Missouri, is where they're at. And so that's kind of where it is. And sometimes the kids will come down and help me. I could probably be bigger than what I am. Just we homeschool, and you know, life with 4 kids, it, you know, gets a little crazy. But yeah, it's a fun little project to do with the milk so it's not wasted.
I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Thank you again for the Grace with Goats farm. If you like this video, please leave a comment down below to encourage them because what they're doing is great. And I'll see you next time. Bye.